Hi, I'm Frank Kelso with Reliant. Working out in the field, from time to time, you're going to come across a couple of issues. One of those I know we've all experienced. You go to do a mosquito service or a flea job. You pull on your Mr. String and the string snaps. Well, I've got a quick tutorial for you to help you solve this issue. So, out in the field, you might not always have all the proper tools. So you can take your 9/64 Allen wrench, and there's 3 screws located here, here, and here. Take that and unscrew those screws. Now, once you've got the screws unscrewed, you're going to want to lift up away from the gas tank and just kind of wheel it off. Next step, we're going to work on the spindle. Now, for this repair, the tools I would suggest you have on hand are a T25's Torx bit and a pair of needle nose pliers, and preferably some rubber gloves, just because it's a little dirty. Of course, out in the field, you're not going to have either a Torx bit or a pair of needle nose pliers for this repair, so I won't be using them. But these nuts are T25. So for this repair, I won't have these either. Now, of course, my string isn't snapped, so I'm going to disassemble it real quick so that we can start from scratch. Once it snaps off, you'll be left with your handle that'll have a knot in it. You'll take the knot out if it snaps right here. Turn it over. You'll have some variation of some amount of string left over attached. So you'll have to go ahead and remove that string. Now, again, needle nose pliers, you can grab your little nut and pull it out, but again, in the field, you might only have your pliers, but it should still work. So you'll do your best to grab onto that nut and remove it. Then you'll be left with this and your broken string. Now, if it's just snapped off right here where the handle is, you can just feed that back through the pull cord hole and tie a nut onto it. If it's snapped over here, you can do the same process over here and then just rewrap it. But in this case, we're doing worst case scenario. It's snapped mid pull strand, so you have to either replace the cord or have a really short pull cord. Now, you can either use a lighter if you have one on hand, light the end of this and then kind of draw it out, or just put a little bit of water on it so you can get it to a more slick appearance, but also so that it'll feed through this hole easily. So you're going to want to come in from where it's notched and attempt to slide it through a hole right here. Until you get it to the point where you can see it right here. Now again, this is where a pair of needle nose pliers works wonders. And just pull it through. But if you don't have that, another option would be Didn't mean to spin it. Take your smallest Allen wrench. It's going to autofocus. And attempt to just lightly turn it up so that you can feed it through. Until you can get enough out that you can either grab it with your fingertips or with a pair of pliers. Now, once you've got it pulled through, like so, you're going to want to take it and you want to tie either a single knot or a double knot in it. I always prefer the double knot just because it seems to hold on to it quite a bit better than the single knot does. It makes it less likely to come undone or slide through the hole for whatever reason. And then you'll get to a stage where it looks like that. Next, you're going to want to wind the rope clockwise around the spindle. Now, if you're doing a fresh cord, if you're working with a fresh cord, whenever you get to the stage where you've got it fully wrapped, this part is going to want to go through that hole there. Now, looking at this, I've got a little too much for whenever I stick it through. It's going to have roughly about that much of slack. Now, you can either just wrap it again to put more tension on the rope, like so. That way it'll draw your handle flush with this exterior. The other option would be to cut your cord down once you've got it pulled through. Now a full pull on the cord should be roughly your hand to your shoulder from a half extension of your arm. That way you can get a good pull on the cord whenever you go to start it. Now I've got tension on the pulley. There's a couple ways you can feed it through this hole. You can either wet or take your lighter to the end of this so it's a little easier to get through. I've got a little bit of water on it, and then you just take it and you do your best to shove it through that little opening. Now again, this is where that small Allen wrench can come in handy. You can kind of feed it into that opening. This isn't an easy process. You have to make sure you hold the spring in place, or the tension is going to pull the cord right out of the opening. Make sure your rope is on the spindle. Come over and you grab your rope. So now I've got a good full arm extension on the spring. There's plenty of tension on it. Next, you feed that rope back through the handle. And again, this is one of those parts where you can either use your small Allen wrench, wet it, fire it, stick it in. Or you can take it, put the water on it, just kind of spin it a bit. That rope comes right out. Now again, I mentioned before, you can either knot or double knot this. I suggest double knotting so it doesn't somehow get pulled through this hole. And you want to take that knot and just bring it right over top of the other knot. So it makes a nice large knot. Pull it tight, and there you go. You take it, push it in there. You can either cut off the excess with your box blade, and cut it off, or if you've got a lighter handy, you can light this part and then just squish it back on top of that. Of course, the cutting part is a little more difficult than just putting some flame to it, but you cut it there, and then you leave it like that. Now, you've replaced your pull cord. Next step, of course, is reassembly. The last steps in the reassembly process is to place this back onto your mister. There are 2 rubber feet that correspond with 2 protrusions on the gas tank. If you get that rubber foot onto the protrusion, your life's going to be a little simpler. Otherwise, you're going to be forcing this into place for a while. It takes a little bit of effort. But once you get it in place, the rest of this can easily slide back into place pretty easily. Now, it is easier if you remove the rubber spark plug cover when you go to do this. And you want to make sure everything lines up properly. It takes some fiddling. But you can eventually get it into place. You then take your screws, put them back in these 3 holes. Then take your 9/64 Allen wrench and reinstall. Once you have your screws reinstalled in those 3 holes, you should be good to go. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. It should save you some time out in the field and let you get back out there and start working more quickly. Thank you.